Hi, Gulls fans, and welcome back to How to Hockey. This week, we will be going over penalties. Let's get into it. In hockey, penalties are a common sight on the ice. During a game, you are more than likely to see at least one team get penalized for doing one of many infractions, resulting in a power play. We will talk more about power play, penalty kill, and penalty shots in a later episode. Moving into the different types of penalties, there are three distinct categories: minors, majors, and misconducts. Minor penalties are the most common and result in a 2-minute power play. A power play is awarded to the team that did not take the penalty, giving them a 5-on-4 advantage. Major penalties carry a heavier punishment. A major penalty will result in a 5-minute penalty. Unlike minor penalties, if the opposing team scores on a major penalty, the penalty does not end. Misconduct penalties are a bit different. These are 10-minute penalties that do not result in a power play. Misconduct penalties will have the player that committed the infraction sit in the box for the full duration of the 10 minutes and will only be released from the box after a stoppage of play. Oftentimes, if majors or misconducts happen towards the end of the period, the player will go to the locker room early and serve the remainder of the penalty at the start of the next period. For this episode, we will only be going over minor penalties. Don't worry though, next week's show will cover all major and misconduct penalties. Before we go into describing all the minor, here is the full list: roughing, tripping, cross-checking, delay of game, elbowing, slashing, high-sticking, holding, interference, hooking, unsportsmanlike conduct, too many men, boarding, charging, contact to the head, and kneeing. Roughing occurs when a player goes past the acceptable amount of contact in a play. This is called when a player adds an additional push or punch following a hit. It is also used to maintain order following post-whistle scrums that get a little too heated. Tripping is the act of using a player's stick or body to take out the legs of their opponent. Tripping penalties are quite common and can be the result of missing a poke check, diving at the puck to try and stop a pass or shot, or by trying to get better positioning in net front battles. Cross-checking is the result of using your stick as a weapon. Either shove a player down, create space, or knock a player off of the puck. It is called when a player holds their stick with both hands and extends their arms out into their opponent. Delay of game penalties can be called for multiple different reasons. The most common reason is when a player shoots the puck over the glass while in their own zone without the puck hitting anything. Other reasons for delay of game penalties could be the goalie playing the puck in the restricted area behind the goal line, centers using their hands to win a puck back on a face-off, a player covering the puck with their hands while in the defensive zone, an unsuccessful coach's challenge, a player or goalie deliberately knocking the goal off to get a whistle, or fans throwing objects onto the ice. Elbowing penalties are the result of a player using their elbow to make the initial contact with their opponent. This penalty usually is the result of a player sticking their arms out after misjudging their check in an attempt to still make contact with their opponent. Slashing is called when a player violently swings their stick at an opposing player. This is usually called when the stick makes contact with a player's hands, stick, and legs. Slashing most likely occurs when a player got beat, either by speed or a deke, and they swing their stick in a last-ditch effort to slow down the attacking player. High-sticking is when a player's stick makes contact with the opposing player's face. It does not have to be intentional for this to be called, as players are expected to always keep control of their stick. If blood is drawn because of this, then the referee will assess a double minor. This would result in 2 minor penalties being given and a 4-minute power play. Holding and holding the stick penalties occur when a player deliberately grabs onto any part of their opponent to slow them down or prevent them from shooting. Holding can also be called if players try to pull down their opponent from behind. Interference penalties are the result of a player going out of their way to take out an opponent. This could be as simple as changing their skating line to set a pick, or as dangerous as hitting a defenseless player without the puck. A pick is when a player purposely moves in front of their opponent to stop their momentum and give their teammate for space with the puck. These are commonly seen on power plays that emphasize puck movement. A goalie interference penalty can also be called for hitting the goaltender at any spot on the ice. Hooking is another stick infraction, like slashing. This penalty happens when a player uses the blade of their stick to pull on the opponent's hands, midsection, or legs to slow them down. This usually happens when a player cannot catch up to the skater in front of them and uses their stick as a last-chance effort to break up the play. Unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, similar to delay of game penalties, cover a wide range of infractions. These usually occur after whistles. Common reasons for being given an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty include verbal abuse of opposing players, officials, or coaches. They can also be called for deliberate actions like shooting the puck at someone, breaking a stick after a goal, throwing an opponent's equipment over the boards, and other actions like these. Too many men on the ice penalties are called when a team has more than the appropriate number of players on the ice at one time. These are usually the result of bad line changes, or a player touching or making a play on the puck before his teammate reaches the bench. A boarding penalty can be called when a player deliberately hits an unaware or defenseless player into the boards. A player is automatically considered defenseless if their back is turned to the play. These hits take place in the danger zone, which is about 3 to 5 feet from the boards. A play like this can be very dangerous for the player getting hit, especially if they go head first into the boards. If an injury were to occur on this type of penalty, it has the potential to be upgraded to a 5-minute major. Charging penalties occur when a player goes out of their way to hit an opposing player. Typically, the rules allow a player 2 strides when going in for a hit. Usually, players will take a stride, then glide before making contact. When a player commits a charging penalty, they exceed the 2 strides rule and lunge into their opponent. A charging infraction can also be the result of a player leaving their feet to try and deliver a more aggressive or reckless hit. Similar to boarding, this penalty can be elevated to a major depending on the circumstances and referee's discretion. Contact to the head is called when a player's first point of contact is to the head of their opponent during a hit. This penalty was implemented to make the game safer and protect players from head injuries. Once again, this penalty can be elevated to a major depending on the circumstances. Kneeing is one of the most dangerous minor penalties. It can lead to devastating injuries to players. This penalty is the direct result of a player sticking their leg out to hit or slow down a player cutting across the ice. This often leads to a high-speed collision with both legs hitting each other and both players being shaken up after. That concludes the first part of our overview of penalties. Although it may seem like a lot to digest, these penalties are very easy to spot during a game once you understand them. Be sure to tune back in next week as we complete our coverage of penalties. Go Gulls!